Welcome to Second Take, the show that focuses on the issues behind the news. South Africa's Deputy President Ryhove Motlanthe said earlier this week that there were no immediate plans for the nationalisation of South Africa's mines, but that transformation wasn't happening as quickly as it should. Mining Weekly editor Martin Creamer is with me in the studio to discuss this. Welcome to Second Take, Martin.
Thanks, Shannon.
The Deputy President says there are no immediate plans for nationalisation. Does this mean it's on the cards for the future?
Well, the word immediate was quite revealing, and he is the highest level person yet to speak on nationalisation. And in a way, he left the door open for nationalisation. And he was speaking at a hallowed function. You know, he was speaking at the 120th anniversary of the Chamber of Mines. He had that platform to satisfy people that, you know, not in his lifetime would there be nationalisation. But I highlighted the word no immediate plans, which sort of gives you the impression that, you know, if something comes up, we might do it. And he also had an expression of, we can't do this on the hoof, which again sort of gave you the impression, well, if we sat down and really thought about this and brought in multi-sectoral reviews, yes, possibly we could do it.
Now, he says that the call for nationalisation by the youth is based on the slow progress towards transformation in the industry. What's your take on that?
Well, I think he's either going to use this as a big stick, saying you haven't transformed, which means that you haven't brought blacks up the career path fast enough into the top positions and into positions along the line. He's saying, because you haven't transformed, you are now having to be punished with these calls for nationalisation. Well, you know, even when you listen to the youth, one isn't clear whether they're talking about nationalisation, in other words, spending $3 trillion or 3 trillion rand on buying up existing mines, or whether they're talking about national participation. You often get the feeling that they're talking about national participation, in which you know, the state will have a free carry in terms of a shareholding in certain mines. And the National Union of Mine Workers spokespeople that I've listened to, they really aren't talking about nationalisation. They're talking about national participation and having a free carry, as one has, say, in Norway, where when people seek concessions for gas and for oil, they get, the state has a shareholding in particular projects. So it's as clear as mud at the moment.
So now, what would Ryhove Motlanthe like to see with regards to the transformation of the industry?
Ryhove hasn't spelled it out, but the Minister of Mines the next day spoke at the chamber, and she spoke, well, you've got the 120th anniversary, and then you've got the 119th AGM the next day. And she was in a strange opening gambit. She said, she said to the chamber, we've reviewed the mining charter and we know you regard it as unfair. Well, I hadn't heard any public statement from the chamber saying that the review of the mining charter was unfair. She said, we know that you regard it as unfair, but we'll give you a look in. We will consult. Now, what does consult mean? Does it mean we're going to let you know what we're going to do? And I think that therein is going to lie the stick of transformation in the review of the mining charter. Now, you know, the mining charter was introduced 5 years ago to give, to transform the industry. And the transformation was supposed to go along the lines of ownership and gender equity and employment equity and health and safety, and it had a whole lot of pillars. That has now been reviewed by the government, seemingly unilaterally. And the chamber will get a look in. Quite an interesting way of doing things. But it doesn't mean to say they're going to be able to change anything, it seems to me. So perhaps that is a stick that they're going to use and say, you didn't nationalise, now we're going to beat you with this transformational stick. But the jury's still out.
Martin, do you think there is some logic behind the call for nationalisation?
Well, the logic would be that you put more, you try and get a revenue stream running into the state coffers, which you can use for, you know, infrastructure, which you can use for education. We've seen it done in other countries. I mean, we see that Botswana, for instance, is a 50% shareholder in the mining ventures, and they've used that revenue stream well. I mean, when you go to Botswana, you see the roads. But South Africa is in a completely different situation. You know, for 100 years, the private sector, for 120 and more years, the private sector has been running the mining industry. And we imagined that the Freedom Charter had been satisfied when the government became the custodian of the mineral rights. And the government of South Africa is now the custodian of the mineral rights, and the various mining companies have to apply for new order rights. So they only get those rights for a period of decades, and then they've got to reapply. So in actual fact, the Freedom Charter has been satisfied in those terms. And I think even the ANC, the Thule House, is saying that's the way we satisfied it. But the youth are saying, no, no, no. You know, we want something extra here. They want a revenue stream, it seems, to come in, and perhaps even through nationalisation, transforming the mining industry by bringing their own people in. I don't think the realisation is there of how difficult this industry is, and that you cannot just transform it overnight, and it'd be silly to try and transform it overnight. You've got to be patient, and you've got to earn your spurs, and you've got to know what to do in the industry. And a lot of the transformation that has taken place is very sound. I mean, I've just come from Exoro, where they showed off their Grootegele coal mine. Now that is black owned. Hey, there's no BEE here. There's no one sitting in a plane and being a passenger. The blacks are the drivers. They're flying the plane. And brother, is it impressive, eh? Is it impressive? And you see them supplying, now getting ready to supply 14.9 million tons of coal a year to the new Medupi power station, absolute lifeblood of South Africa. You see them supplying coal in the most professional manner to the Matimba power station, which is the paragon of power station virtue. I've never seen anything like this. It is the power station in Africa. It is the benchmark. And this is run by a transformed team of whites and blacks, and they're working together so well. And their head office is fighting. The Eskom head office, which is supposed to be mature. You know, these are supposed to be operational level people, you know, who are more robust. But what do we find? We find that at Megawatt Park, they can't run themselves. You know, it's a stupid thing. We've got so many gems in South Africa, and you saw again Exoro, following that government passion for downstream beneficiation. They announced yesterday a char plant. So, you know, that means that when they sell the coal, they might get 100 Rand, but if they sell the char, they get 300 Rand. So they've got much bigger value addition. And now they're going for a market coke plant, which will, instead, it's a 5 times unlift of value. So they're fulfilling all the government expectations. How the minister, Susan Shabangu, can call Exoro or people like that a front. It's an affront. I mean, the woman hasn't gone down to see what these people are doing. Exoro, to win that, those black owners there, to win Exoro, to win Isizwe originally, they had to compete against 65 other participants. 65 people were bidding for those original coal assets. They beat off 65 people through their vision. And Sipho Nkosi and his team, through their vision. And they didn't sit there saying, oh, we're going to sit back and let other people run this. They ran it. They've done the hard yards. They are operators. And now look how well they're doing. And yet they're getting no credit for it.
So transformation actually is alive and well.
Very much so.
Thank you so much for your time, Martin.
It's a great pleasure.
That's the show for today. Join us again next time for more insight into the happenings of the mining world.